Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Today we're going to be ranking all of the foundations I tried in 2023. So before we get into it, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel before you leave. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy, and let's get into it. So I tried 14 foundations in 2023. Almost all of them launched this year with the exception of my 14th place. So coming in at number 14 is from MAC. This is the Studio Radiance Face and Body Foundation. So this one is one that I grabbed because I wanted to do a full face of MAC and their serum powered foundation had not yet been released. So I picked this one up because this one has been a cult favorite for such a long time. I do have the shade W1. Again, this had been a favorite for a really long time for so many people. I just never tried it, and it's just not my favorite. So this is a more sheer formula and I do prefer a little bit more coverage in general, but I also just found that this really did nothing on my skin. Granted, I tried to apply it with a brush, I tried it with a sponge, and it really just seemed to do absolutely nothing for my skin. And from what I understand, this is one that really works best if you warm it up between your fingers and then apply it that way. I do not like to apply foundations with my hands at all, so this is just not one that's going to work out that well for me. This really isn't a terrible product, and in full transparency, I don't think I tried any terrible foundations this year at all. This was a pretty good year for foundations. This is not a terrible product by any means, but if you are like me and you can't stand applying foundations with your hands, I think you would really want to pass on this one because that's really the only way to get a decent coverage with this. I think I have tried with different types of brushes, I've tried with sponges, and I just can't seem to get anything out of this. So it just looks like nothing on my skin. So for me, this is number 14. It's not a bad product. It just doesn't work with any of the ways that I personally like to apply foundation, if that makes sense. Coming in at number 13 is one that launched way back at the very beginning of the year, and I actually did quite enjoy. This is from NYX. This is the Bear With Me Blur. So I heard a lot of people talk about this when it first came out, and then I've heard nothing about it since. I have the shade 3 Light Ivory. So this is supposed to be a medium coverage blurring tint foundation. So another thing about this year, I feel like it was really the year of medium coverage skin tints, which sounds confusing because when I hear skin tint, I'm very much thinking sheer coverage, maybe just enough to even out your skin tone and be done. But this year we saw a lot of medium coverage skin tints. This one is very matte, so I do love the coverage I get out of this. It does look like it's going to be way too deep for my skin, especially compared to all of my other foundation shades, but this actually works really well. They don't have the biggest shade range, but I do think the shades are very flexible. I do think this is going to work best for more oily skin types. I can totally make this work. It's just a little more matte than I personally like. Overall, I really liked it. Longevity was good. Blendability, again, the shade ended up working very well. It's a very flexible shade. The coverage was really great. It's just a little bit more matte than I typically prefer on my dry skin. So for that reason, this one is ranking lower, but it's not a bad product at all. Coming in at number 12 is from Laura Mercier, and this is the Real Flawless Weightless Perfecting Foundation. In this foundation, I have the shade 1 and 2 Vanille. So it's supposed to be a more neutral shade. It does pull very yellow, which is quite a pet peeve of mine, to be honest. I absolutely hate when all foundation shades in a range have a little bit of a yellow to them. I know Too Faced was really bad for that for a long time, which is why I don't tend to go for a lot of their foundations. But there are just some brands that I find just pull yellow. For those of us who are more neutral or have cooler undertones, that's just not what we're going for. So for that reason, this one dropped to number 12. I do like this foundation. I think it gives a nice coverage. I think it has a slight luminosity to it, which I think is really, really pretty as well. I do think that if you go in too hard with this, it can feel a little bit heavy, which I actually had the same complaint about the Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin Foundation, in that it's really nice, but if you go in with too much, it feels heavy very quickly. So for that reason, I did take some points away, but otherwise, I think the coverage is nice, the luminosity is nice. It's a really nice formula. I just don't love that even the neutral shades pull too yellow. It's not exactly transfer resistant. I do think it's best to powder this down, but I do think this is a really nice one for dry skin. I think this is really nice for that. Coming in at number 11 is a foundation I've kind of gone back and forth on, and this is the Say Glowy Super Skin Foundation. I have the shade 3. I like this one. The shade is perfect. I think this is a really, really nice formula. I think if you have oily skin, you would absolutely hate this. This is truly incredibly, incredibly glowy, and I do find that it is a little bit too much. So initially, I really loved it. I really love the coverage. I love the blendability. The wear time is excellent. I really do enjoy this formula. It makes the skin look very dewy, very glowy. Even on my dry skin, I found I was powdering more than usual just to take down some of that glow. I find that when I do powder this, it's a bit of a more approachable glow. It's not so over the top, and it does look really, really nice. The thing is, I don't like to always powder my foundations. Like I said, I have dry skin. In the summer, I don't mind having to powder, but in the winter, I do tend to gravitate a little bit more toward cream products, not powdering my face as much. And the past few days, I have not powdered my makeup down at all, and my skin feels so nice when I do that. And because I'm dry, I don't have to worry about everything kind of slipping off. It just works out. So with this, I do have to powder it because the natural glow is definitely too much for me. Also, I think I'm starting to move away from that super glowy trend. I'm realizing that I definitely prefer much more of a soft matte. So I really do like this. I really do. I just think I'm at a point where my preferences are starting to shift a little bit. I think it's beautiful. It's just I'm sort of gravitating away from this type of look. Coming in at number 10 is from Rose Inc, and this is the Soft Light Skin Smoothing Liquid Foundation. This is a really nice one. Obviously, the packaging is stunning. It's a heavy frosted glass bottle. I just love everything about the design of this packaging. I find that this wore all day long. I think it looked really nice on my skin. It was a nice solid medium coverage. I don't think it's very buildable to more full coverage look. I think it's a very solid medium coverage, and I just thought this was really nice. The problem I kind of had with this one is that it performed and looked exactly the same as a drugstore foundation I'm going to mention a little bit later on, and it's $70. That's Canadian, but it is $70 Canadian. That is a lot of money for a foundation that performs exactly like a drugstore foundation that I have. I mean, granted, it's a very good drugstore foundation, but there's just nothing about this that justifies that high price point. I mean, the packaging is 10 out of 10 beautiful, but it just doesn't justify that price point. I do have the shade 3N. I think it's pretty. It has a really nice finish to the skin. It does kind of dry down to that soft matte, but it does leave a little bit of a glow. It's very comfortable. Like I mentioned, it wears all day long. It's beautiful. I'll definitely continue to use it and enjoy it. It's just that, like I mentioned, it doesn't justify that huge price tag. So this is one that when I use it up, I would not purchase again. I like it. I like pretty much all of these foundations I'm mentioning today, so it actually is quite hard to rank them like this, but I really do enjoy this. Again, there's nothing special that justifies that price tag. Coming in at number 9 is from L'Oreal, and this is the True Match Super Blendable Foundation. So they actually did repackage this foundation this year. I think it was initially in that short little bottle with a twist off lid. They redid it. I think I have the Canadian packaging. I have the shade 1N Ivory, and I do think this shade is a pinch too light for me, surprisingly. I think it's very, very nice. It gives a really nice light to medium coverage. It looks beautiful on the skin. It's very blendable. It dries down to a soft matte, so I don't need to powder it if I don't want to, so it doesn't stay tacky on the skin. It wears all day long. It doesn't cling to dryness. I think this is a fabulous foundation. I really did enjoy this. I'm very impressed with this. I love that they finally have it in a pump as well, so I'm not dealing with that messy packaging, because packaging does make a difference. But overall, I think they did an excellent job with this one. I'm very, very pleased with some of the things the drugstore has done this year when it comes to foundation, and this is definitely one that I'm really enjoying. Coming in at number 8 is the one that reminds me of the Rose Inc formula, and this is from Revlon. This is the Illuminance Skin Caring Foundation. I have the shade 109. So this one, I feel like looking back on my initial review, I was very lukewarm about it, but that doesn't mean it was a bad product. It's a really nice foundation. It's a medium coverage. It gives a slight glow to the skin, nothing too much. I don't need to powder it. I did find this wore off a little quickly than some of the others, so I wanted to mention that, but this is in the $20 range, and this is the one that to me is very comparable to the Rose Inc. Obviously the Rose Inc packaging is much more elevated than the Revlon. This isn't bad though. This is a glass bottle as well. The pump is really nice, but these remind me so much of each other, but there is a $50 price gap. So I just don't understand why I would go for this over this when they do the same thing. They look very similar on the skin. The performance is very similar as well. For that reason, this one's definitely ranking higher. I like the price point better, and it does all the same things as the Rose Inc. Again, very blendable, easy to work with, medium coverage, just an all-around good foundation. I think dry to normal skin would really enjoy this. I think even oily skin types might enjoy this. So I think this is a really nice drugstore formula. I think they did a really good job with this one. And speaking of excellent drugstore formulas is from Maybelline. And this is the Superstay 24-Hour Skin Tint with Vitamin C Derivative. I have the shade 110. This is also in that realm of medium coverage skin tints. This one is really nice. This gives a really nice medium coverage. It has that soft matte dry down. It really does last all day long. It's very blendable. It's very easy to work with. What I don't like is the packaging. I hate this dropper style packaging, and it's one of these really large, kind of aggressive droppers that I don't like. I also hate the scent. It's got that very chemically wet paint scent that I really cannot stand in makeup. However, the product itself is actually so good that I can look past it. At first, I thought between the scent and the packaging, this is going to be at the bottom of my rankings this year, but then I found myself continuously reaching for it over and over and over again. And I thought, okay, well, clearly I really enjoy this foundation because I trust it enough and enjoy it enough that I just continuously reach for it. So clearly I've really enjoyed this. I think it's a great product. I do wish they would maybe repackage it, put it in a pump. I think would be good. Maybe do something about that scent if possible, but otherwise I really like this. This is a really good, reliable, soft matte foundation that looks beautiful on the skin. It's a skin tint, but it's medium coverage. But I just think this is beautiful. I do think they did a really great job with this one. Coming in at number 6 is from a brand I just started getting into this year, and this is the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Serum Skin Tint. So this one really surprised me. There was something that kept telling me to pick this up, and when I tried it out, it really does have a bit more of a light to medium coverage. It's definitely a little bit lighter, but it's not as sheer as you would think. This was such a go-to for me all summer long because it is so lightweight. It's so comfortable. It feels incredible on the skin. It doesn't have that soft matte dry down as much, but it's also not tacky, so I don't mind that at all. It blends out beautifully. It just looks so good on the skin. It does give a soft glow. It just evens out my skin so beautifully. This is definitely one that I go for when I am literally just looking to even out my skin tone, look a little bit more pulled together, but I don't want to wear a heavy full face of makeup. This is absolutely where I go. This is such a fabulous skin tint. This is definitely one I would repurchase if I run out of it. This is a squeeze tube, but it's a really nice one. It's just controlled enough that you don't end up getting too much product. I think the packaging itself is really beautiful. So I think they did an excellent job with this. I really do love this. Coming in at number 5 is one that I think kind of switched places with the Say foundation in my original ranking. So I remembered the Say Beauty foundation. I had that so high on my list when I first tried it, but like I mentioned, throughout the year I noticed my preferences have started to shift. And this is a foundation that I kind of compared to that one. This is from MAC. This is their Studio Radiance Serum Powered Foundation. This one I noticed I have been grabbing a ton recently. So I have this shade NW10. I think I forgot to mention the Danessa Myricks. I am shade 2. But this one is an NW10. I really like this. So first of all, you get the frosted glass jar. I actually really like the component. So you just twist it to dispense product. It's easy to lock up again. This is definitely also a medium coverage. It does dry down to a point where you don't actually need to powder it if you don't want to, but it does give a very soft glow to the skin. So initially when I first tried this out, I was like, oh, the glow is nice. It's not the most transfer proof though. It does dry down to a soft matte where it doesn't feel like you need to powder it, but I do recommend powdering if you want to extend longevity because this is definitely not transfer proof. I know it does claim to be, but it's really not. I love the soft radiance this gives the skin. I love that it's very hydrating. It's just very comfortable on the skin. It does everything I want it to do. It feels so nice. This one really surprised me. I liked it when I first tried it out, but then I noticed recently I've just constantly been wanting to wear this one. So that definitely told me something. Again, initially when I first tried this, I said I liked the Say better. But then again, as the year has gone on, my preferences have kind of flipped a little bit. And this has definitely become a favorite. So I'm very impressed with this. I think it's beautiful. I think it looks nice on the skin. It's easy to blend out. It's very hydrating, very comfortable. Not the most transfer proof, but if you're not somebody who touches your face very much, I don't think you'll notice that. I can set it and get a really long wear time out of this. If I don't set it, it will still wear quite a while as long as I'm not touching my face, which I shouldn't be anyway. I think this is a really nice solid foundation. I do think this is absolutely beautiful. Coming in at number 4 is a stick foundation that really surprised me, and I have shade 1, which is too light for me, but this is in the Fenty Eavesdrop Blur and Smooth Tint Stick. So I feel like I've been kind of on a mission for such a long time to find a good foundation stick that is comfortable, is not too dry, and blends out super easily, lasts all day long, and I've had a really hard time doing that. Foundation sticks do tend to be a little bit more dry and they do tend to cling to dry patches. I do love the Merit foundation stick. I think that one is wonderful, but this one also really impressed me this year. So first of all, the packaging is nice. It is like a plastic packaging, so it does feel really inexpensive, but it's supposed to be fully recyclable. It does look like you don't get much product, but if you keep rolling it up, there is actually more product all the way down to here, which is nice. This is a foundation though that I would kind of get shade matched for in store because their little shade match chart, I just really didn't find that accurate because it compares it to their other foundation line, their Pro Filter line, and says if you're this shade, this shade, this shade, and this shade, then you're shade 1 in the stick. And then shade 1 is actually way too light for me. So I kind of want to grab shade 2 and then maybe mix them if it's too deep. Otherwise, I think this is beautiful. This is a very creamy stick. It blends out beautifully. It is so comfortable. It gives a beautiful medium coverage. It's so, so, so convenient. And that's why I have been looking for a stick foundation, just for that convenience. Something like this is just not as messy. It's just easy to work with. It's very quick. I like that. So I am so happy I finally have something like this. I am kicking myself for not ordering another shade during Black Friday sales, but I think this is absolutely incredible. It's not too drying. It's got a nice dry down to it. I do find I like to add a little bit of powder because it can feel a little bit heavy if you layer too much. Other than that, I think this is such a great foundation stick. I'm so glad I finally have this in my life. Coming in at number 3 is the only powder foundation that I tried this year, but it's one that has made me so happy. I don't necessarily wear it as an all-over powder foundation, but I do use it for extra coverage when I need to. This is from Maybelline. This is the Superstay 24-Hour Hybrid Powder Foundation. So I think this was released at the tail end of last year. I have this shade 102. I could probably go up to 110. And it's quite obvious that I like this. I do have pretty decent pan in here. Again, I like this for foundations that maybe don't give me enough coverage. I think I've actually paired this with the Danessa Myricks when I just want something light, but then I find there are certain areas of my face that need a little bit more coverage. I'll just go in with this. This is blurring. It is very full coverage. It really covers up anything you want to hide, but it also just blurs and makes everything look very nice, very airbrushed, very pulled together. I really have enjoyed this so much. This is like my mistake fixer powder, which I love, and it's never too dry on my skin. And for me, it is really hard to find powder foundations that are not too much on my skin, but this is definitely it. I could have put this in a powder rankings video, but I honestly don't have enough powders to rank this year, so I'm skipping that, and I just wanted to let you know how much I really love this foundation. Okay, coming in at number 2 is from Makeup by Mario, and this is his Surreal Skin Foundation. So this is another one. I think it was launched the day after Christmas last year. I think I did my wear test on New Year's Eve. I really do love this. I think this is definitely one that is going to be more preferable for normal to dry skin. This caused quite a stir because when you really look at it, it's got like, it looks like it has these microfine glitters in it. And I think it's because, and if I remember correctly, it's because this formula is infused with setting powders. And when you do put this on, it does have a slight luminosity to it, but it does dry down to that more soft matte, so it's not feeling super tacky all day long. My dry skin absolutely loves this. I find that if I really want a solid medium coverage, this is such a good option. It feels so nice on the skin. I love the slight luminosity it gives, but it definitely packs a punch with that coverage. It pulls everything together. It just looks absolutely beautiful. It wears all day long. It doesn't break up weird or anything like that. Incredibly blendable. Again, also very hydrating. I've really been enjoying this. This is one that I feel like has been very polarizing this year. People have either loved it or absolutely not loved it. I am definitely in the camp of absolutely loving this. And I think I forgot to mention I'm the shade 2N. This has been such a staple this year. And coming in at number 1 is one that I really didn't expect to surpass all of the others, but I fell madly in love with it. This is the Too Faced Born This Way Healthy Glow Moisturizing Skin Tint. I do have 2 shades. I have the shade Snow and I have the shade Porcelain. I am wearing this today. So this is a skin tint. This does have 30 SPF. It does come in a squeeze tube. It's really pretty though. So I initially purchased this at Ulta. There was some reason I was just so curious about this. The first time that I put this on, I was applying it with a brush and I was in awe because it felt like I was blending on a very silky moisturizer. It just felt so nice. It blends out. It gives such a beautiful medium coverage. As you can see, it feels so nice on the skin, so hydrating, but it actually dries down to a soft matte. I don't have any powder on my face today except my bronzer. That's it. But otherwise, this dries down to a soft matte while also being very hydrating and comfortable. And I loved it so much that I ended up picking a second shade in the shade Snow. So this one is definitely quite a bit lighter. I mix the two. I usually do 2 drops of this, a drop of this, mix them, and it's perfect. I love these two so much. Again, so comfortable, feels so nice, not at all heavy, soft matte, dry down, every single thing I want. And then today when I was putting it on, I was reminded yet again, this feels like such a luxurious moisturizer when I'm applying it. And today I actually did it with a sponge, which is something I hadn't done before, and it felt so luxurious putting this on. It sounds crazy, but this has honestly been such a favorite for that reason. I'm honestly surprised, and Too Faced is a brand that in the past, their foundation shades always pull yellow, and it drives me bananas. And I find that this range does not do that. So absolutely impressed. I've absolutely loved this. This has definitely been my favorite of the year. I am really shocked that the Stay foundation fell down as far as it did, because initially I was asking myself if it was competing with the Makeup by Mario with my NARS Light Reflecting. Initially it did, but then that extremely aggressive glow that it gives, I just started to kind of gravitate away from it throughout the year. And then I realized I actually liked the MAC foundation so much more, and I think that's when I was realizing that my preferences have changed. Literally none of these foundations are bad products, it's just based on preferences, wear time, hydration, skin type. That's how I had to work this in. So let me know down below what your favorite foundation of the year was, or are there any of these that actually surprised you? Let me know. I love hearing from you guys so much. And that is it for me today. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!